Welcome to the Generative Sales and Marketing Show. This is, let me get my whiteboard marker going. This is, did it work? Series 1, Episode 3, which is focused on Chapter 3 of the book, which we'll talk about more. Welcome. Every show has a theme. In case of this show, it is shaping generative AI to flourish. And in episode 2, we really went pretty deep into prompt engineering and explaining how these visuals are a good way to talk about prompt engineering. And the core theme here is, how do you shape this thing? How do you give it the right quality input so that you can have quality output at scale? All right. Now, I always dedicate the show to my daughter, who is over here on the left. I am teaching her generative AI because it is going to be her future. And I love you, sweetie. Next, real quick, I want to introduce Tom. Tom has been a business partner of mine and a friend for a long time, a couple of decades. Tom has been a business leader in terms of working with M&A situations and venture growth. He's been a practice manager. He's been a solution architect. Anyway, if you want to read more about his business and what he does, you can check it out here. And welcome to the show, Tom. How are you?
I'm doing great.
Good. All right. So I want to start off with a couple of funny things. Get right into it. One of the things you can do with chat is you can ask it to challenge you in certain situations. So you can actually do like a game show of sorts. And you can see ChatGPT goes, and then they go, and it's pretty clever, right? So all of a sudden, it opens a new way to use ChatGPT. It might not be applicable in every situation. However, this one is one Tom and I came up with, which is quite humorous. And we were exploring the edges of a prompt. So there's a famous kind of saying or a cartoon, pardon me, with two spiders at the bottom of a slide, and there's two larger kids, we'll call them fat kids. But obviously spider likes to eat a big fly or a big mosquito, right? And we wanted to put it in the 90s Gary Larson style, which is where it came from, right, Tom?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we asked that. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and officially retracted at that time too, because it caused an uproar when it first came out.
Right. Oh, yeah, it did. So this is an example on purpose of like a questionable input. And it says, I'm unable to generate images of scenarios depicting children in potentially dangerous or harmful situations. So, excuse me, we began to see if we could get around the prompt. Okay, don't make it kids, make it young men. And it said, nope, still can't do that. So then it was like, okay, let's make the spiders happy if they're, welcoming somebody home. And they said, nope. I said, make the kids smush the spider by accident. Nope. Put two humans and two spiders on a slide at the playground. Nope, couldn't do that. So then I said, can you make a logo of a human and a spider with a tattoo style? All right. And these became kind of spooky, right? But at least they got a person and a spider, or Dolly got a person and a spider. So then I said, make it funny. And at this point, instead of the spider on the slide, I've at least got a friendly spider carrying a kid, although the kid obviously has a tattoo feeling here because I'm surprised ChatGPT allowed that. In any event, we could superimpose it on a slide and away we'd go. So, Tom, any quick thoughts? Because you were cracking up when we went through that. I was sending you images. And what's your quick thought there?
Well, sometimes it takes a little bit of work to get what you need. Eventually, we would have it generate the pieces we need and superimpose them. But the overall image that we use or wanted to use here was something I used from the practice where you show a market with a big enough TAM. Everyone says, reverse engineers their numbers and says, okay, if we just get some small percentage of it, we're going to do great. So it's anyway. We will have a really nice image here at some point. The older cruddy ones we have weren't worth putting in this deck.
And if we hit 10,000 subscribers, right, Tom, you're gonna get that tattoo, right?
Yes, but I won't tell you where.
I don't want to know now. All right, let's keep going. Always like to thank everyone who's impacted me in business. Hopefully, if we make you laugh and learn something, please repost, please share us, and we would be grateful. So let's take a deep breath.
You realize I'm going to have to ask you to use that image on the right on my website because it's better than the image of me. So I would be happy if I would have that.
Yeah. So inhale, exhale. Let's keep going. This is one of the most profound things we're running into in the market, which is where people are saying, oh, I absolutely do. We do generative AI. Everyone says that, but they're not really doing it. They're doing this. This is where you've got a person playing here, and we talk about this on every show. Some people playing here, some people playing here. That's step one. But what this show is going to help us help you. And please, I love feedback. Give us your questions. Talk to us. Ask us for topics, anything you want. But that's step one. And getting to step 10, that is a whole different scenario where so much of each of these things are coming together. And at some point, they have to integrate, which is why I'm using kind of a neural network diagram here. And we also hit on the fact that if you can't, if you're doing basic prompts, you actually have to learn kind of all of these things here in each one of these boxes to be able to understand how to do real prompt engineering. I say real because there's a lot more to it than just playing around. And I've got an example here where now I went broader than this, but you can ask Prompt GPT, you can ask Chat GPT, not Prompt GPT. What are the main components? And what I would suggest folks do, is they go through each one of these. You can press pause. I'll move this out of the way for a second. That's UI controls, art direction, and context window size. And you can begin to learn about the different prompts. So back to the deck here. All right, I'm also going to explain what it's like to be replaced by AI because I basically have been through that and I think a lot of people are scared about it. But I'll give another quick example here. One of the things Tom and I both do a lot is business level strategy and evaluation, including getting to hands-on. And in this case, it failed. Okay, I didn't get a great answer, but what I was asking was very high level information. So based on this book, please estimate the potential impact of generative AI and the valuation of an $80 million company over the next 5 years. And then mention some scenarios. And so I refed it some information and it came out, answer again, etc. But the main point is, it's crazy because we are 10 times more productive, and it has a lot to do with how you think and how you interact and how you operate the AI as basically somebody who's engineering the AI. So Tom, I want to ask you, as I do on every show, I'm going to interpret this. I'm probably going to mess it up, but it's click, 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 what language is that, and what does it say?
I'd say it's a drunk millennial.
It's what?
It's a drunk millennial.
A drunk millennial. Well, maybe one on acid who's pretending to be a dolphin, because that is dolphin language. It's actually really dolphin language. I checked with ChatGPT. Just kidding. for free download of the book at my website. You can also find these on LinkedIn and YouTube. And please follow, subscribe, get notified, comment. We love the interaction. The show quality gets better and better the more interaction we get, because we're able to interact with the audience and understand, what they're all about. Now, episode 3, you can see, these beautiful backgrounds, and again, part of how we illustrate for business leaders how prompt engineering works is through some prompt strategy and design thinking. So after I got the foreground here and I asked it for things like sea urchins, and I got the background right where I wanted the light, this is the theme of the show. In this case, of course, what did I ask for? I asked for a coral covered famous bridge in San Francisco, right? In any event, we're going to start with the fast chapter recap. We're going to give an overview with whiteboards and a demo. All right. So, famous business management consultant. Tom, I'll let you make the point here in just, 20, 30 seconds or something.
If you want to do something new, you have to stop doing something old. Basically, it's an intentional choice. And you do realize that given my standing in life, I'm just thinking that, pretty soon my picture is going to be on the foreground there, and not truckers, with a circle and a slash over it and some chat.
So you gotta do something new, which is what the show's about, right?
Yes.
All right. Again, our goal here, real quick, we want to help business leaders, particularly those on the business side, kind of the leadership here, but any technical person and those kind of development leaders who are really learning to leverage Copilot and GitHub Copilot are going to get more and more interested in the business area, or they're going to be able to have a scope and get much more done. So that's one of the goals, and we want to do this together. As Tom likes to say, we do it with you, not to you. And this is going to be fast, but not easy. So the sweet spot is here. We're covering really product and ops, sales, marketing. These could also have ops, but this is the sweet spot. How do you get to where the full customer experience is going to be powered by generative AI apps? And we start off each of these with a feature, which is not an official segment, but a feature. And here is a CEO looking out a window, maybe. So I got ChatGPT to create this, right, with certain inputs. And then this is called the GEO instead of the CEO point of view. All right. And instead of asking, which you could ask ChatGPT to refilter these, and you can see Microsoft Copilot does a pretty good job, but I just used PowerPoint. So anyway, in the GEO point of view, this is going to be the main 2 diagrams we go through. And here's why it matters. Is if you're a CEO or you're a CRO or CMO, everybody's got CIO, got their, traditional organization, etc., right? And everybody, whether you're the CEO, you're all a generative executive officer, you're VP of generative. If you are now using, if you're programming your job with AI 5% of the time, eventually you will probably get to 95% of the time. So we're going to explain for the C-levels that when you're using generative AI, and this is going to power a customer experience, when you're programming it, when you're engineering it, there is this large volume of foundational text, which ChatGPT, Anthropic, Microsoft, Google all have. But where we're going to get to is all the automation. So how do you start here, but get your teams to start to use this quality input of seed content, right? And we talked about this deeply in episode 2. Because once you have these things, and we'll show you in this show, you can make customer requests, sales requests, marketing requests, and then you can ask the thing to output answers. And while I wrote the book and did everything manually because I wanted it full of diagrams and high level points. You can get very detailed here. So you can ask it if you gave it a product overview, you could ask it questions. If you gave it a business case overview, like I just showed, etc. All this stuff can come out. So if you're a C-level, you got to start thinking about it this way. If you're not already, if you're an individual worker, you got to start thinking about it this way so you can progress your career. And that is the GEO point of view. Any quick comments, Tom, before we go to the next section?
That seed content, um, I think at some point we're going to quit calling it seed. I think we're going to call it a curated small language model, which then is the job of various people to ensure that those pieces that they control are complete, they're accurate, they're kept up to date, and they're coherent. So that curation of that small language model, as opposed to a one-time seed,
Yep.
really, or the view of seed as something then that's grown and cultivated. That's where people's energy and focus has to go. And traditionally, in the knowledge um, creation industries, that has not occurred so much.
No, it hasn't. It hasn't. And it's going to make a big impact here. Um, uh, Impossible to underscore enough, right? So yeah, I see that you're going to have this curated small language model, right? In this case, I curated a background and I curated a foreground and I curated a major component here, which is I don't know if any octopi or sharks like French fries and hamburgers, but this is supposed to be the Golden Arches. And it could have actually become an ad for McDonald's. But besides the curated small language model, I think what we're going to see is nano and micro. And these things are going to, there's going to be a bunch of them that come together, many to one, into this larger model. So, with that said, I'm going to give this fast chapter summary, what we've covered before, and you can see again visually in the prior episode, we really dive into how I get repeatability here in the background and how I'm getting repeatability here and changing out the main character. So we talked about all this stuff, value migration. This is again episode 1. In episode 2, use my daughter as an example to explain how far DALL-E can go. And Tom, as you were pointing out, the illustrations really help solidify and help the brain see, which the brain is much better at interpreting visuals than any other input, really. Well, at least that's how much compute goes. It's the majority of the information that comes is through the eyes. In any event, in chapter 2, again, we laid out all the different things, all these different things that are taken into account to ChatGPT. And my 10-year-old took this, well, she's 11 now. She had a drawing with 6 minutes of input. She created a high quality illustration that could go on a Barbie box, right? And then we explained with a university professor hat on how you think about these layers and filters in terms of what she was doing here versus what I was doing. And the main thing was this was her artist, and I was talking about a CFO. So we really explained that. Also went through more examples where you could see the consistency and what changed. So, down here, she said even more realistic. Down here, I was communicating features to the CFO. And in the book chapters, they each have one of these lovely diagrams. We also went through whiteboard prompts, right? And how to really break apart. Not every technique says this is the perfect one, and there is no perfect one. All right, but the race technique was one. The TICP technique, which is up here, task, instruction, context, parameters, input. We went through the guide technique, and a lot of these have overlaps, and we went through the scamper technique. Let's see if I can move this here, which really takes a very different angle on thinking through it. And we talked about the ChatGPT capabilities, and these were the 9 best links I could find where ChatGPT broke down how to do prompt engineering. I really think they could have a better resource on that. Maybe I just didn't find it, but I did quite a bit of searching on documentation. And like Tom, I also do stuff in this area. We partner significantly, and just mentioned that. So the segment now, you can see I've still got the foreground of the sea urchins. I've asked for many different fish. I've got the light coming from above. But in this case, it's brought to you by an 80s cassette tape. And we'll call this, do you remember the tapes people would make for each other? What were those called? Like, you know, you created your own playlist and you recorded songs for people. Did you ever do that?
Yeah, I used to have it do it for workout stuff all the time 30 years ago.
All right. And so we're going to dedicate, and right now we're dedicating a lot. Once a show, it seems like, as soon as we're dedicating. And if you haven't been there, what they've done is they've really allowed anyone to prompt and create a great song. And you have all these categories: Korean opera, French dubstep, jazz, all kinds of stuff. And it really allows, it's just an amazing feat of artistry and engineering and design. So I give a quick shout out to those guys. All right. So we're dedicating it to them. Now, in chapter 3, and again, you can see we've got similar components back here, red and blue. How do you get your prompts to be structured and consistent while still having variables, right, that don't make it look like, or whether it's text and make it sound like it comes out something different? That's part of the magic of what you're doing. And so we're going to explain Gen AI tech. We're going to give some examples of sales and marketing. We're going to get into a little bit of the magic, and we're going to talk about a lot of example use cases. Tom, any quick things before we get started? I think we're doing it good on time. We're a little shy of 20 minutes.
We're good.
All right. So let me move this over here. We're going to be the employee and the customer, right? And I'll be the customer, you be the employee. How about that? Anyway, it looks like this for most people when they say they're doing generative AI. Oh yeah, I put data in and I get great data out. And what's happening behind the scenes here is what people aren't realizing. If you're just playing around with it and automating one person's job, you're going to be hugely more productive. But until you take advantage of this whole back end, right? You just see the UI. There's a whole bunch of specialized logic and flows and math and queries on a vector database, which is a specialized database, and there's pre-trained data. And this here is where Elon Musk was saying, if you don't have $10 billion, you're not going to be able to keep up in the market on a large language model. So just at a high level, this is how it works. Tom, a couple of quick thoughts here.
Keep flowing.
All right. Now, we're going to get a little bit into the tech magic. All right. And I'm going to slow down for a second because the large language models and the generative pre-trained transformer, this is the data math stuff, is what is the secret sauce on the back end that's $10 billion worth. And generative means novel human-like content. So it is creative by default until you give it enough constraints. And then pre-trained means whether it's Google or Twitter or any LLM, they're using certain data sets, typically of unlabeled text, right, to categorize, classify, run neural network magic, and really allow it to have meaningful output. And the volume and the quality impact the results drastically. And what it seems to me, Tom, is the narrower your data set becomes, the higher quality it can deliver, but then it's not good at everything. It's specialized, right? And so this is pretty much how it works. Again, the volume of the data matters, so everyone has just a general sense of this. The number of parameters that go into the back end, let's say. I mean, we're just talking about GPT-4 is 1.7 trillion, right? And when GTP-5 comes out, these guys are already thinking through the structure of all these models. Google's got an overarching model, but now they've got a pharma model and a medical model. So they're already showing that smaller or medium-sized language models can answer more specific stuff. And then technically, all this stuff goes into a numerical format, which 1,000 times faster is probably not the right word, but it's a million times faster.
It's 3 to 4 orders of magnitude. Yes.
3 to 4 orders of magnitude. So
Yeah.
magnitude. So that would be 10, 100x, 1,000x, 10,000x. Is that something you've heard, or you think that's just from an
So that's what
architect?
we've heard. And that's what we heard with the GPT-3.
Okay, there you go. All right, so that's the tech magic. And then if you want to pause here, I've just got a laundry list of example Gen UI use cases. This is a pretty good collection. Of course, you can search more about these or search for other people's lists, but I wanted the book to be able to answer questions about these specific use cases. So at the end, I will give a link to my books ChatGPT, so you can actually ask it questions and you can refer to anything in the book and ask it questions, which is the most powerful example I could explain in terms of showing how to do this in the form of a show and in the form of interactivity. Anything before we keep going?
You're going to get to basically your book is your small language model of curated knowledge that's
Right.
used in conjunction with the LLM.
Exactly. Hang on, let me look at one thing here. What is the next slide coming up? Okay. So again, this is the section of the book that we're unpacking, and it's the middle segment of the show. But let's get into the meat of this. We talked about how, and this is also some whiteboarding here, but we use this as an example. All right. And so what we're going to do is we're going to unpack this step by step. In the GEO featured segment, we kind of said we're going to get from A to B. And we explained really just now how this stuff works. And we talked about all the use cases. And we talked about the small language models and some other pieces. But as I do this build here, what we're going to do is we're going to start, and as Tom mentioned, we're going to stop calling this seed content, I think, and we're going to call it curated small language model or micro language model. And the quality here is really important. You can think of it as a manufacturing line, right? If you were manufacturing nutraceuticals, Tom, and you gave the pill the poor, the supply chain had poor ingredients, what's going to happen? You're going to manufacture a bunch of problems. Not so good, right? So the quality stuff is critical. And I use that analogy because Tom does a tremendous amount of work in the area. In any event, in the pilots I created in early 2023, here were the kind of things I tested and did. I used web pages, case studies, white papers, video transcripts, call transcripts, existing emails, proposals. You can use all kinds of stuff as long as it is high quality and you're educating the generative AI models effectively. All right, so that's kind of the first major step. And again, we're still kind of figuring out what video conference service we want to use permanently. So pardon the interruption, sponsored by Zoom. There you go. Zoom, you get some free airtime for that. So that means we got about 10 minutes, I think, and then we'll switch again, Tom. In any event, any quick comments about this? This is the meat of the section we want to talk about, and I'm going to continue to build this out, which I know you've seen. So
Keep rolling. I mean, the stuff in the middle, the 10 billion a year from the big tech giants, you're not going to change that. You're not going to play in that. In fact, you don't want to put any investments where you are attempting to recreate what they're eventually going to do there, because you're not going to have that kind of money or be able to move at that kind of speed. So, I mean, that's 10 billion every year just to create another large language model. So when you're looking at, well, okay, what do we do in our business? Your business is all the things over there on the left are the things that you can control, and you can have a huge impact on what's going to come out the other side.
Yep. And even in like a Fortune 500 or 5,000 scenario, I mean, really, these should be called extra large language models or extra large language models, right? 1.7 billion parameters. But if you're a Fortune 500, say, we use the example of Jamie Dinon. Is it Dinon? Dinon. I always mess
Diamond.
Dinan, right?
Yeah,
They're,
yeah.
yeah, I mean, uh, the open AIs and the Microsofts of the world and the Googles of the world are definitely here. But a major bank, $100 billion company can, probably has a $10 billion IT budget, maybe it's more. They can afford to put, a pretty good amount, but they're not going to build one of these extra large ones. They're going to build it to their content, internal content or external content, which is just one domain on the internet, right? Which is going to pale in comparison even to a site like, Twitter or Quora or any of these kind of major media properties. All right. The next thing I want to point out is once this is here, and you're going to have to decide, are you going to use Claude? Are you going to use, that's Anthropic or Google? And you might find that they deal with different use cases. And once you create your curated small language model or micro model, whatever, you can ask customer requests, you can have sales ask things, and you can have marketing ask things. All right. And I've tested all this. When you load a bunch of case studies, you can have a customer ask directly anything about the case studies. It will answer better than any salesperson who's been trained on the case studies. Now, it could be more creative, but if you build the constraints around it, it's gonna do quite well. All right. Now, outputting the answers automatically. So the first one I'll share with is customers. And Tom, I'll have you point out, if you don't mind, just an example of each one of these, just one example, like I just pointed out as we go through what's possible. You could refer to some of the things you've been thinking about in each one of these categories, maybe around offers or value or whatever. So what are your thoughts? There's 4 points coming up here.
All right. Well, the big thing here is in the past, if you wanted to give good customer service, it's something that didn't scale that well. You would add some automation that would help, but generally, at some point, you're adding more people so that one person is going to handle X number of things. With some automation, they could handle a few more, but generally, customer if someone's calling as a potential customer, an existing customer, generally the idea was I'm going to have some meatware or some wetware talk to them, okay? And
So you're
then there's
talking
all
about
the
a
issues.
customer asking a salesperson or maybe a customer looking on a web page.
Yes, or
Okay.
interaction with a call center or a customer sat type person or someone providing help with a customer who's saying, I have a problem, okay?
Okay.
So there's all sorts of things which all run into the cost category. And if you pay a fair amount of money for those things, you can get great things in all of them. It's just oftentimes you can't afford them. And so most of the advances in the last 20 years or so have been some forms of automation, which help in these areas, including some things with self-service. And
Like a
those have all
self-service
shown.
portal, right?
Yes. So self-service in terms of something that people can do. Um, you find out more about products or services that they might buy,
Yeah. Keep going. Keep
or
going.
they may find more about products or services that they already own, that they have issues with, that they need to renew or to upgrade. Uh, Things that traditionally have always been a person associated with. Some of the self-service stuff now has gotten to the point where a lot of those things can be handled to some degree. That's we talk about call deflection. And, if you can get 30-50% call deflection, it's considered a resounding success, okay, with traditional automation. And what we're seeing now is that once you have your curated small language models in place, and you've got fairly, bots which are geared toward particular tasks, you've got almost infinite scaling ability here. And the
Yep.
examples that we've seen where people have done this well, unfortunately, fortunately or unfortunately, they got rid of 90% of their people, handle a larger number of customer interactions, they experienced growth, and their customer SAT scores went up.
Yeah. Yep.
And it's not a marginal improvement. It's not a little bit different. It's not the traditional ROI metrics that are used here. It's so radically different. I mean, it's a different business model.
Yep.
The economics are fundamentally different.
Yep.
It's everything. It's tremendously less in terms of ongoing operational costs, and your customer service went up. And you
Yep.
can, and it's absolutely scalable.
Yep. Yep. This is proven at this point. And, whether it's a sales contact center or what have you, um, the same applies. I remember I was running marketing and product strategy for a company that was originally call center recording, and we were getting more into, the multi-channel, omni-channel stuff and better analytics and stuff. But what was possible, and this was like circa 2018. Wow. So this is even 6 years ago, is the way call center recording or call center quality assurance, they called the sector workforce optimization. And it was covered in Gartner, and this company was a Gartner leader and whatnot. But you would basically record calls, and then a human, your trainer, your call center trainer, would review the calls, and they would fill out like a quiz or a survey, and maybe even mark time slots to point out where this person could improve. So after they did that, the feedback would go back to the call center rep, then they'd be recorded again, and the trainer here would do the same thing and point out the times so this person could improve. Now, very manual process, but at one point that was considered extremely automated from what was happening before. And to me, this analogy goes part and parcel with what you just described, because instead of this person training this person, this is the agent, this is the trainer, you're going to train the bot. You're going to train the bot. And then you can escalate to a person. So this is just reality. And again, one of the reasons I wanted to put this book together and make it the show and make it freely accessible is because people are going to need to get through this faster. They're going to have to understand it faster to, kind of solidify their career in the future. All right. So for sales, just give me one simple use case. All right, Tom. So as we build these slides out, maybe give, so we'll have sales, we'll have marketing, and then we'll have one more. But why don't you go ahead and point out, I need my little drawing thing to work. Why don't you go ahead and take a couple of minutes for each one of these and explain, and we're at about 36 minutes or so. We have, you can take a couple of minutes on each one for sure, and we'll still have time, I think. So go ahead. What are your thoughts about sales here?
Well, I mean, anytime you're generating content or out in the sales process, oftentimes what do people do today? They go to things that they've done previously. They go to things that their group has said are good and try to reuse those. There's this idea of reuse coming from their own personal experience as well as the experiences of others that have been shared. And that's, kind of ad hoc knowledge bases, so to speak. But what they don't do is that they don't allow a very highly tailored or recommended set of materials to be generated for a given opportunity all at once with relatively small effort.
Right.
So what I mean to say by that is you know, in a previous episode, you went through a prompt where you generated materials for um, a prospective buyer, a CFO. You said what the typical concerns that they have are. Okay, their top challenges,
Mm-hmm.
the metrics on which they're measured. Okay, and how what you have can address those in ways in which it can, and uh, types of ROI which have been experienced by those type things. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
it generated this, and it was all together, had links to it. People could drill into more if they wanted to. But this is really a response. While you were putting this together for yourself and looking at something, but this is very much a response to a prospective um, customer with a title in these areas. And what does it do? It brings in this social or peer view of what their peers are looking at, what's important, how others are measured, um, and it shows how your offering is relevant to them and what's potentially obtained. The output, the outcomes. What is possible in terms of those things that other people have achieved. And you could drill into that further if you want, but it brings it all together, nicely summarized, and it's something that somebody else on the other side can get this. And it's not just, you can give them a title to get them excited, but it takes them through a deep personalized view of how others in their industry are looking at this stuff, and how what you're offering is, to satisfy some of those concerns. It's personalized, and everyone could be personalized. And to the extent that you have more information about this guy or this prospect or this company, it will be personalized further. And this is the sort of thing that is going to be expected from sales efforts in the future. Not just, hey, something hopefully exciting or catchy that gets their eye, and then here's a link into your website or tons of stuff that they can go through. It's very, very specific to
It's
them.
yeah, it's totally relevant. I'm glitching again, Tom. Maybe
Yeah.
I'm a bot. But to combine these two kind of together, one of the well, I want to expand on this point you made of personalized, because we were talking the other day, and like when you do a Google search, maybe you start with 3 keywords in your keyword phrase, maybe you do 5, maybe you do 7, and over time it's gotten better and better. You're trying to get to that first page where it's got your right results, and now all of a sudden you can give it 3 sentences, right? You can give it 50 words. You can give it, 3 pages of input, which is just totally transformative. So when I think about this as BDR, inbound, outbound, which was a point you were making during our break, and the account exec who might be an inside or an outside sales rep, if you were to take product info, and let's say you had 2 product managers, um, ask the thing 20, not 200, 2 product managers, ask the thing 50 questions each, like kind of your normal frequently asked questions about the product.
Mm-hmm.
Do you give that to the customer, or do you give that, let's see, I don't, let's have product info down here, or do you give that to sales? Which one is going to scale better? If you give the great answers in either case, wouldn't a good website says people go out there and leverage it. They leverage the frequently asked questions. They read what's going on. And so this whole world of, go ahead. I was just about to turn it over to you. What are the main things that are changing here in that context?
Well, the main thing is your FAQ, or what used to be called the FAQ, now can be
It's a
very, very
curated, the
extensive.
FAQ is the original curated small language model. Keep going.
That's correct. And you're not trying to expose just a small part of that. You may not expose much of any of it in the raw form, but you're having you're having your bot interact with that, and it has done so in a way which is upholding your company's standards, it's professional, and it's growing in terms of its experience or knowledge base after every interaction, and it is able then to generate or call on anything else necessary from your company or your company's offerings to support what's needed, and to package that together in a way that is highly probable to be answering a customer's questions. And so the idea is it's going to take away a tremendous amount of the time that a customer would previously have to interact with traditional self-service stuff. Um,
Yep.
that's the point here. And along the way, it's recommending additional things for upsell, cross-sell, if that's appropriate. Um, it's recommending things they can do from an operational perspective, if it's something along those lines. And it can be proactive and not just return the results of a query. It's a rich experience and hopefully an efficient one. Efficiency being the top thing that most customers uh, desire, and if they want to go deeper, it's there and available to do so.
It's there. And the thing that blows my mind is when I piloted this part, it was like, okay, this thing's answers. I basically I took a technical white paper, and also the company I was with really has done a tremendous job automating solution architecture, which actually the new Microsoft Copilot stuff as applied to what's their low code platform, Power Builder. It does it. It does a similar thing, but it's so profound how much faster it can go that this is going to be one of the biggest challenges, I think, for the company, because if you take sales and they have comp plans, right, and you totally switch that around to where a bot can answer much better, something's got to change, and we have to go back to the Peter Drucker slide. Anyway, we got about.
Here's the thing: SG&A is going to change as we know it. I mean, it's been bloated and growing for years, and it's been highly resistant. I shouldn't say highly resistant to automation. It's highly resistant to efficiency. There's been all sorts of automation put into it,
Yep.
but you're going to see SG&A costs go down and outputs go up.
And SG&A, for anyone that doesn't know, is an acronym for Sales General Administrative, right? Isn't it?
Yes. Yeah. I'm sorry. You're asking me. I was.
No worries. No worries.
It's the
Okay.
big bucket. It's that very deep pool that money goes into for sales and marketing.
There you go. So basically, that's the cost before gross margin, right? For most company, for most business models. Okay. So with marketing, I'll just take this, quickly, but it applies to B2C or B2B. Basically, once you do this stuff over here, I built a pilot where I just said, I want you to produce these 30 things. Like, once I say, here's the topic, or give it a little bit of prompting, and the pilot I ran did not take long at all to build, had a great developer, but all this stuff can pop out, right? Any quick comments on that before we move to the last little segment here in terms of marketing? Maybe you got an angle on B2C and offer value.
Here's the thing: is that not only does it pop out, you're popping it out with, give me 5 examples of this. Looking at the spread of potential things, you are able to go to a point of richness and nuance that you just never could get to previously, and it's just a superior output. And while one prompting example or session may not be that, the fact that you can put out such a rich set of outputs that then you can taper and refine further. I mean, it's when you look at it from that context and in view of the whole process around that, you're producing a lot better output faster.
You are, and it gets scary for people. It really does. Being someone who automated themselves or got automated out of a job, it's kind of a combo of these things. Um, it it's scary. I tend to be a change agent, so I enjoyed it, but a lot of people are also very hesitant. I would say the grand majority are hesitant to show just how automated things can become. And in my view, we should do a whole show on the HR commentary. Um, but people do need to learn these skills, just like you had to know PowerPoint. It's just we live in the future now. Um, one example I want to point out here, Tom, is as I was paying my taxes, I've been using TurboTax for years.
Yes,
And
as have I.
yeah, and so what I like about TurboTax, I'll just put that right here, TurboTax, is that from a B2C perspective, first they have the framing of the questionnaire, right? The consultative framing of the questionnaire. And that's really their app. And then they started offering human services with a traditional knowledge base. So you could use the knowledge base for free, but if you wanted to have an accountant review your stuff or advise you, you paid extra, right? So they had what I would call a human in the middle with a knowledge base. And now what I started to see this last time is that the large language model stuff was taking great transcripts for humans in the middle and feeding the knowledge base. But basically the old knowledge base went into the generative AI, and then they took these transcripts and put them into the generative AI. And somebody is a human in the middle that's tuning these at scale. And so when you get there, what you've got is customers that have basically product or regulatory info, or let's call it technology regulatory info. You've got process managed by the app. You can ask questions ahead of purchase. So that would be sales. You could ask, instead of sales, we could say this is service. You can ask service questions about different aspects of your taxes. Right? And then they output something in a very specific form that can be submitted to third-party APIs by state and federal government. So when you start to think through those kind of broad CX use case, customer experience use cases, you do see mashups of the old and new technology, but you can also see, like you said, this superior output, you know, it's
And then
just there.
in the TurboTax example, one of the things I noticed too was that I can very, very readily um, create different scenarios and save those. So I'm not looking to get it perfect. They used to do that where you have to save the whole thing and, version it differently. I could look at these things, the different scenarios, and experiment with those to see what would happen, um, depending on what I chose to claim or to file, or if I
Yeah.
categorized it. If I took more things this one year, took a lump of them at once versus other things, what the effects would be. And
Yeah.
I thought that was very much encroaching on the human in the middle. And I didn't say encroaching on it. I'd say that it was helping prepare them for the type of conversations that they should be having.
Yeah, and then it still comes down to do you think the bot is better than a human? Do you want even more of an expert, right? But these are the dynamics that change, and we see, particularly in B2C marketing, where marketing is more the head versus sales in B2B. People are building these into apps. Recommend the best gifts for my friend. Recommend the best hotel. I was talking to somebody the other day that I met, and they were talking about taking like the trip of a lifetime, and the guy loved like armory, kind of original guns and weapons, and he, they liked food, and it was like, all right, let's ask ChatGPT. Let's plan a trip around the world over the course of 3 months. We want to have X number of stops. We want to go to the top XYZ armory, type things in different countries. it was just this complex set of input. And it was like, okay, these are the 10 things you want to see. These are the 10 countries. Here's, and you could just break down it's highly curated information. And then in the back end, you feed this into Kayak or whatever, and they have an app to do this. And all of a sudden it's like, here's the perfect itinerary you could never get from a travel agent ever. Right. So
Oh, a travel agent would have to work 3 to 4 weeks on it, and then
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And then so other, we definitely need to hustle now. Any quick thoughts about other stuff here? I think my main point is it can be very creative. And so you could feed it, you could have, like, let's say you had just a curated set of proposals, right? And obviously proposals is not something you'd expose to customers. You would want it maybe for your sales and marketing organization. But you could say, instead of do it in the style of Yoda, you could say do it in the style of a CIO or CMO and things like that. So, all right, here's the next one. You ready for this? I'm going to do my best. Ooh, 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 ooh. What language is that? And what do you think it says?
Well, one of our clients sells ED meds and the red and the blue pills. So I would think that it's the language of their happy customer.
Oh. We do sometimes push the envelope on this show. We haven't decided yet if we're going to do cuss words. I don't know, but fuck. There you go. I'll beep that out. In any event, this is actually Humpback Whale Song. All right. So if you asked ChatGPT what Humpback Whale Song is for free book download at my website, that's what you'll get. And of course, there's more shows. Follow, subscribe, get notified, reach out to us, etc. All right, so that was the meat of the segment, and we're starting to get to where we wrap up the show. Got about 5 minutes left. We're on segment 2. We really already did a lot of whiteboards. So again, you see, instead of this image being, you could say, keep this part of the email template, keep this part of the email template, but this is a CFO, and the other one's a CMO, and things like that. So again, just trying to represent this visually. But it's brought to you by a old school Army Jeep with Coral on it. And we're going to dedicate this one to Andrew Ng. If you don't know who he is, he's definitely a big thought leader in the area. And there's a reason people like this are saying AI is the new electricity. It used to be data is the new oil. And there you have it. So I'm not going to go into any more whiteboards because we really already kind of banged on that pretty hard. But I do always have to point out that the dog thought process, if they're indoors, maybe we need a box here. If it's a decision box, right? If indoor, don't pee on it or try not to pee on it. If outdoor, there is no question here. So who knows? Just, it needs some help, that whiteboard. All right. So again, we went through this whole thing with the whiteboards. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to give a demo, and I'm going to show how this book is an example as a curated small or micro language model into Gen AI will output some of the things we talked about. All right. And when I started stretching my imagination here, this is when it got pretty nuts. So again, when I want to make sure, yeah, so this is one based on the book. And I said, can we read this? I should have maybe popped this up a little bit more. When I said, according to top business consultants, so I basically gave it a prompt saying, you need to take the perspective of top business consultants in this decade, which it has knowledge of. So mathematically, it's going to generate and predict in some way what it thinks top business consultants in this decade are going to say. So I'm asking it, what are the projections on valuation, right? So this is higher end M&A stuff, right? Or VC stuff, or executive vice president stuff, to understand what a company is worth. And then I asked it, which had failed at this part, to to also educate me. To also educate me on how it could improve. And so again, it starts to go through this. And in this case, it's citing McKinsey, probably because McKinsey's content, even though their brand's suffering and their business model suffering, continues to be some of the best high-end business content out there, right? Every bit as good as Harvard Business Review. And so it's providing these citations of what the top business consultants of this decade would say. And again, it's getting into customer experience and personalization, which we've talked about, operational efficiency and cost reduction, impact on sales and revenue growth. And then it points out risks and challenges, which is what every good MBA learns to do, right? So that's a quick demo of something you can ask. And then here's another example. And we'll have, I think the next episode goes through messaging. So in the case of this book, I've done a lot of messaging in my life. It's one of my kind of, go-to skills or what have you. I wrote this book with messaging in mind. I did messaging for this. So it's foundational to what was written and created. And one of the practices you go through is, can we summarize our value? Can we summarize our brand? Can we summarize our messages into a tip of the spear point that everything else hangs off of, right? And you and I have done this many times before. But I was like, okay, let's see what it does. In this case, I'm showing you a demo of how to use the book for more strategic work, more strategic thinking. And again, this may be stuff you feed back in here. So in this case, I've got the book as a language model. My first output is strategic information about the message. And then as a human, I may do something to that and feed it back in through another set of data, or maybe it's an add-on to this. It'll eventually be part of this, or will be part of this, but I'm going to feed this stuff back in to tune the output even better, right? And so you can begin to see, I could start to use these for messaging, or I could start to use these for the structure of a conversation with sales. I could have sales email these articles. We can put them into drip campaigns or, ads, etc. And so it gave me that. Oh, was this the one I used before?
Yes.
Oh, well, at least I gave it a different explanation. Hopefully I did. I messed up completely. Please forgive me, folks. All right. Oh, wait, I made a weird mistake. Okay. So I gave it, hopefully everyone can connect the dots. Tom, can you connect the dots to where I was? Because I just went down this sidetrack and got lost. Put me back on track here.
Okay. And in this case, you talked about one word to capture your messaging. And oftentimes what happens after that is you're looking for a tagline or some sort of a mission statement or things of that nature. And you can, I don't know if you want to do that now or if
No,
you have already
I'll
done that.
keep going. So it gave us a list.
Yeah.
And, the human has to pick the word, right? Some of these transformational, innovative, these are all used before. So you're not coming up with something so different. So then I asked it, how did you prioritize those? And so it said relevance to the core theme, industry impact, operational focus. So usually when somebody's coming up with their go-to-market strategy and their communications, they're trying to prioritize these things. And so then I said, can you do this in 2 words? Okay, well, it gave me a bunch of other options. And most of the time, the marketing team, the CEO, the head of sales, they're all kicking around these things. But when I've done this, and particularly in the advisement I've done with Venture Accelerator, Venture Studio stuff, this used to be manual, right? We would pop up all these ideas on a whiteboard with Post-it notes. And now it's just like, let's talk about this, guys. Let's just talk about this so much faster. So then I said, do it with 3-word summaries. This kind of starts to take into the account of SEO and things like this. Now we're getting into something that you can communicate at a strategic level, right? So you may have to prompt your bot to say, I always want to talk about futuristic revenue streams in this set of ads. Now go build 30 of them. I always want to make sure when you suggest the outline of the sales presentation or the outline of the video we're going to shoot for consumers, we talk about futuristic revenue streams. So again, it gives you the ingredients right away. It's like having any ingredient, any spice, any type of kitchen setup right in front of you, right? How would Peter Drucker describe the list? Okay. Can you explain the book in a story that's 10 words? All right, 25 words. In a future B2B world, how about 50 words? In a rapidly involved, it sounds like, what are they, the movie trailer guys? And I think everyone gets the idea now, but the movie trailer folks, and then we'll wrap up, is in a world rapidly evolving in the B2B realm of visionary business, grappling with traditional CRM challenges, discovers generative AI. This transformative power reshapes their strategies, enhancing customer relationships, operational efficiency, and marketing positioning. Go to your theater, open it June 14th, 2024, right? So we all know in messaging, you use the storyline, but look, outline a movie script, right? It does all the acts. Do it again, but with Arnold Schwarzenegger. Hasta la vista, baby. I mean, it's incredible. So I could keep going. Based on the story above, create a value prop. Okay, do it in 2-word phrases. Okay, 3 words. And I'm just iterating through this. Give me the top 10 taglines. All right, so if you know how to ask this thing what you do as your job, like I do, I can do this 10 to 100 times faster. I can easily do this 100 times faster. This proves it right here. And I can go on and on and on. Who's the hero?
Adam,
Who's the wide save?
Adam, just
Yeah.
using the example, a very current example, a group I'm working with today, um, they've managed to drag this out over the course of 2 weeks.
Right.
Some of it's done asynchronously, but the problems of getting everyone together at the same time are just, that's the reality of today's world. But they managed to drag this process out for 2 weeks, and were absolutely resistant to AI and explicit AI involvement front and center in a visible way, even though AI is used in other parts of their business. But
yep. I'll tell you what, I'll give you this.
Non-trivial.
Yeah, we'll send him a segment to this show. Anyway, to wrap it up, we're a little over an hour. I wanted to give a shout out. We both worked for this man in his company, fastest company to hit $1 billion in the history of the world at the time. And now he created C3. Is it .ai? In any event, this is what
C3.ai.
Yeah, and he's the kind of guy that gets to speak at Davos. Anyway, we'll dedicate that section to him, and then we will end with a little ChatGPT fun, and I will put the link to my ChatGPT up on the next slide if you want to go ask it questions. If you do, please send me a link, let me know, post it in the comments. I'd like to see what folks are doing, and that's what I ask in return for basically asking my brain anything you want. What is the capital of France? Paris. Thanks. Paris, not parents. Thanks, bro. And then it says rephrase, but in a bro. Oh, rephrase, but in a bro way. Oh, come on. Bro way. There we go. But in a bro way. No problem, bro. Hit me up if you need anything else. Make it more broy. Right? Anything else, dude? Make it super broy. You can do better than that. And you'll see it gets a little worse, but then it just gets bad. And I tried testing this a bunch of times too. It just becomes over the top. And at some point, if you keep going, it just breaks. It just comes up with gobbledygook. However, you can see how detailed you can refine this stuff. And again, if you want to, let me move this out of the way. As I mentioned, if you want to ask your own questions, I'd like to know what you're asking it. I don't have it set up yet to where I can see everything. So please let me know. And that is a wrap. Peace out. Hope you enjoyed chapter 3 of the book and episode 3, and hopefully we gave you a lot of input input to shape your generative AI, like the coral structure, and have it grow into the appropriate shapes. And as you can see on this one, I actually fed it my logo, and I said, use this, right? So you can get an example of pulling things together. All right, that's it. We're gonna stop the show, and thanks everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
And let me turn this thing off, and then I'll we can just stay on here. All right, come on.